17 and the handout. If you take care of it, you will be able to have a follow-up review sheet when you get home. There's a couple of extra copies. If you'd like to pick up one before you leave, they'll be in the back for you. 1 Kings chapter 17 and verse number 48. Then it happened, when the Philistine rose, came and drew near to meet David, that David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. David put his hand into his bag and took from it a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine on his forehead. And the stone sank into his forehead, so that he fell on his face to the ground. Thus David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. And he struck the Philistine and killed him. But there was no sword in David's hand. We're going to look at a number of verses that surround this section of Scripture. This is part 3 of becoming a champion. We talked about Joshua, how God transformed Joshua into a champion for him. Then we talked about how God transformed Gideon into a champion for him. And so today we want to talk about this man, David. When God transforms us, we are really transformed. Amen. When God makes us over again, when he empowers us, we have really been empowered. And when we are transformed, we are really transformed. Amen. But how did God transform Joshua? How did he transform Gideon? Well, he transformed them the same way that he transformed David. And he transformed Joshua, he transformed Gideon, he transformed David the same way that he wants to transform us. But how did he do that? Here's how God transformed them. He used audible words, engraved images, and intensified emotions. Correct. He used words, let's say that together. Words, images, and emotions. Let's say it again. Words, images, and emotions. One more time. Words, images, and emotions. Whenever you face a monumental challenge, you want to line up words, images, and emotions. And it'll get you there every time. That's how God transforms. Now, don't let the devil trick us. The devil will trick us and say, just go pray. All right. You ever prayed before you took a test and hadn't studied? All right. Listen, it's not going to work. No. Listen, an atheist who studies will do better on the test than a Christian who prays and won't study. So God has designed us words, images, and emotions. That's God. And that is engraved, and you'll see this in every experience that God has with people. So I've got to say that so many times, I've got to get that in you, because that's how you're going to be transformed. Okay? Now, words, images, and emotions. Now let's go back to 1 Samuel chapter 16. We want to pick up quite a few verses and quite a few facts in this story today that'll give it a little more meaning and make it a little more digestible and understandable for you. Because we want to know, who is this person David? Who is he? David was the handsome, youngest son of a man named Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
He was the youngest. He was the youngest son, and he was the best looking son.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that something?
All right.
He was the youngest, and you know, if he had sisters, he probably would have been spoiled.
That's right. All right.
When you read the story about his brothers, it's clear they didn't spoil him. Now his sisters may would have spoiled him, but not his brothers. He was the handsomest, youngest son, and he spent most of his time tending the sheep. All right, 1 Samuel chapter 16 and verse 11. And Samuel had come to Jesse's house to anoint a king to replace Saul.
Mm-hmm.
And Samuel said to Jesse, are these all the children? And he said, there remain yet the youngest, and behold, he's tending the sheep.
Mm-hmm.
Then Samuel said to Jesse, send and bring him, for we will not sit down until he comes here. So he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy with beautiful eyes and a handsome appearance. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he.
Mm-hmm.
And Samuel took the horn of oil, anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon David from that day forward. And Samuel arose and went to Ramah. Now, I want you, when you go home, seriously, I want you to read chapter 16, all of it. If we read it all today, it'll keep us here for about 2 hours, and I don't want to do that. But if you read chapter 16 and chapter 17, you'll pick up a number of beautiful points, because there are some subtle statements that will make sense. Now, notice, he anointed them in the midst of his brothers. Right. Why do you think that was put in there? Because his brothers had a habit of picking on him.
That's right.
So what the Lord decided to do is anoint him in front of his brothers, so there's no doubt in his brother's mind that this is the Lord's doing.
Amen.
All right? Now, let's go a little further. Verse 14. Now the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord terrorized him. Saul's servants then said to him, behold, now an evil spirit from God is terrorizing you. Let our Lord now command your servants who are before you, let them seek a man who is skillful play on the harp, and it shall come about when the evil spirit from God is on you, that he shall play the harp with his hand, and you'll be well. So Saul said to his servants, provide for me now a man who can play well, and bring him to me. Then one of the young men said, behold, I've heard of the son of Jesse, the Bethlehemite, who is a skillful musician, a mighty man of valor, a warrior, one prudent in speech, and a handsome man. And the Lord is with him. So Saul sent messages to Jesse and said, send me your son David, who is with the flock. Now notice where David started out. He started out tending the sheep. Mm-hmm. He started out as a child looking good, tending the sheep, but he became a champion. And through the skillful art of spiritual meditation, God transformed David into a champion for him. All right, let's go to chapter 17, 1 Samuel chapter 17. Now, some of these verses, we're going to refer to them a couple of times. When we come to them the next time, I might just refer to them rather than read them. 1 Samuel chapter 17 and verse 20. God transformed David into a champion for him. So David arose early in the morning. Now, that's 1 Samuel 17 and verse 20. He rose early in the morning, left the flock with the keeper, and took the supplies, and went as Jesse had commanded him. He came to the circle of the camp while the army was going out in battle array, shouting the war cry. Now, what was the army doing? Every morning they would go out and line up and shout their war cry. Now, who was doing that? That's the army. That's soldiers. What are they doing? Every morning they go out and shout the war cry. Now look at verse 21. Israel and the Philistines drew up in battle array, army against army. Then David left his baggage in the care of the baggage keeper and ran to the battle line and entered in order to greet his brothers. See, his father sent his brothers some food and supplies and said, go see how they're doing. And so that's what David does. Now look at verse 23. He was talking with them. Behold, the champion, the Philistine from Gath named Goliath was coming up from the arm of the Philistines. He spoke these same words, and David heard them. When all the men of Israel saw the man, they fled from him and were greatly afraid. Now, David's brothers were in the army. What was the army doing every day? Lining up in battle array, shouting the war cry. And when Goliath showed up, they ran. Every morning, they line up in battle array, shout the war cry, Goliath show up, and they run. Every morning. And so David saw this. Now go down to verse number 50. 1 Samuel chapter 17, same chapter, down to verse number 50. Verse 50. Thus David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling. Now we just read that a moment ago. Now, what was David's brothers doing? Lining up in battle array, shouting the war cry, and they run. What did God do with David? Made him a champion. David showed up and destroyed their giant. Spiritual meditation brought David to a level of success that his brothers were not able to achieve. Now this is amazing because David individually accomplished what the whole army was afraid to even try to do. Do you realize that if you are a minority, if God is on your side, you become the majority? You don't need everybody with you. You just need the Lord on your side. All right? Now, how did God transform David? What is the practical process? How did he get David there? How did he get him from being able to just tend sheep to being a champion for God? I'm going to walk you through the process. It is the exact same that we did last Sunday with Gideon. It is the exact same process we did with Joshua. All right? You got to engage in spiritual meditation through success words. Say success words.
Success words.
Say success words.
Success words.
You got to learn to incorporate success words. We got to get away from failure words. Success words. Success words. Success words propel us progressively forward. And I know sometimes people say, but everything isn't positive. We've got to learn to give negativity a positive override. You know, the next time someone look at you and say, you're going to fail. The next time someone look at you and say, you're going to get killed, you look at them and say, I'm going to live.
All right now. That's right.
I'm going to succeed. You got to give negativity a positive override.
That's right. That's right.
So we got to engage in spiritual meditation through what? Success words. Success words. It's not miraculous. It's not beyond human reach.
Right.
It's a process. Now, how many of you have some flowers in your yard? How many of you stick a flower in the ground and pray and forget it? You don't do that. You water it. You fertilize it. You make sure it gets some sun.
Right.
You don't just put it in the ground and pray. You got to follow God's process.
That's right.
Listen, if you don't just take food and lay it on your arm, that's not God's process. You got to chew it, swallow it, digest it, and it will assimilate in the body. We understand that. You have a child. You want your child to grow. You don't just leave the child in the bassinet and pray. You feed the child.
Right.
We have to learn God's process. His process of making us champions consists of meditating on success words. Now let's watch David for a moment. Go back to chapter 16. 1 Samuel chapter 16. And go all the way back to verse number 1. 1 Samuel chapter 16 and verse number 1. Let's watch the process. He does it over and over again. 1 Samuel chapter 16 and verse number 1. Now the Lord said to Samuel, how long will you grieve over Saul, since I have rejected him from being king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have selected a king for myself among his sons. But Samuel said, how can I go when Saul hears of it? He will kill me. And the Lord said, take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. You shall invite Jesse to the sacrifice. And I will show you what you shall do. And you shall anoint for me the one whom I designate to you. So Samuel did what the Lord said and came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the city came trembling to meet him and said, do you come in peace? He said, in peace. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourself. Come with me to the sacrifice. He also consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they entered, he looked at Eliab and thought, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For God sees not as man sees. A man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the what? Heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, the Lord has not chosen this one either. Next, Jesse brought Shammah, passed by, and he said, the Lord has not chosen this one either. Thus Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. But Samuel said to Jesse, the Lord has not chosen these. And Samuel said to Jesse, are these all the children? And he said, there remains yet the youngest, and behold, he's tending the sheep. Then Samuel said to Jesse, send and bring him, for we will not sit down until he comes here. Now look at verse 12. So he sent and brought him. Now who did he bring in? David. He brought him in. Now he was ruddy and beautiful eyes and handsome appearance. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. Now what has David heard? He has heard success words. The Lord said, this is he. So you got to position yourself to constantly hear success words. Then you got to constantly empower yourself to speak success words. You got to start saying what we see. You remember years ago when you used to memorize, you read a line and then do what? Say it. That's how you got it into your consciousness, by saying it. Then we got to continue to power ourselves to speak success words. All right, go over to chapter 17 again. We're going to have a little exercise this morning going between chapter 16 and chapter 17. All right, chapter 17, verse number 20. Chapter 17 and verse number 20. So David arose early in the morning, left the flock with the keeper, took the supplies, went as Jesse had commanded him, and he came to the circle of the camp while the army was going out in battle array, shouting the war cry. All right, now let's go on down a little further in the chapter. Look at verse 26. Then David spoke to the men who were standing by him. So we got David talking. Now look at verse 29. But David said, what have I done now? Was it not just a question? So David is asking questions. David is asking questions. Now look at verse 31, chapter 17, verse 31. When the words which David spoke were heard, they told them to Saul, and he sent for him. David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail on account of him. Your servant will do what? Go and fight with the Philistine. And Saul said to David, you're not able to go up against this Philistine to fight against him. You're just a youth. Now look at verse 34. But David said to Saul, your servant was tending his father's sheep, when a lion and a bear came and took a lamb from the flock. I went out after him and attacked him and rescued it from his mouth. And when he rose up against me, I seized him, his beard, struck him, and killed him. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, since he has taunted the armies of the living God. You know, there's a lot of powerful messages in this. You know, a lot of people are unhappy with where they are. You ever realize that where you are, that God is simply preparing you to go to the place where he wants to take you? Can you imagine? David is out here tending sheep, and he has a chance to kill a lion and a bear, and that gives him courage to take on Goliath. All right, so he constantly powered himself to speak success words. When Saul said to David, "You are just a youth," what did David say? "I can handle it. I can handle it." So if we're going to be champions for God, he's going to transform us because we hear success words. We speak success words. And then we engage in spiritual meditation through what? Images. Say images.
Images.
Say images.
Images.
Images. Success images propel us forward. Now let's watch David, because God uses images to get him where he needs to be. Let's go back to chapter 16. 1 Samuel chapter 16. And let's look at verse number 12. See, this is not coincidental. Now, when you start looking, when you read the Bible, I want you to always pay attention to words, images, and emotions. Don't overlook the images, because the images are a significant part of what God's doing. We must continue to position ourselves to constantly see success images. All right, look at 12, verse 12. 1 Samuel 16, verse 12. So he sent, brought him in. Now he was ruddy with beautiful eyes and handsome appearance. And the Lord said, "Arise, anoint him, for this is he." Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord mightily came upon David. What do you think this anointing is about? It's giving David an image. See, and when God had a person anointed, that was God's way of placing his stamp of approval. That's a stamp of approval. Now, we have ways in our society where we place our stamp of approval. We see everybody in favor, do what? Raise your hand. You, in a few months, people in this country will give their stamp of approval as to who they want to be president. We do that by voting. Okay. So, an anointing was God's way of visibly placing his stamp of approval. That's why the king's law, there was a ceremony. Okay? And so what's God doing? He's giving David a success image. A success image. Remember when Moses' brother Aaron and Miriam, his sister, contended with Moses? And God came down to show who he was in favor of? He gave him an image. He gave him an image. All right? So we must continue to position ourselves to constantly see success images. And when God anoints one, that's a success image. All right? And then we got to start, we got to constantly begin showing success images. Let's go back to chapter 17 again. I told you we're going to get a little exercise going from 16 to 17. All right, 1 Samuel chapter 17. 1 Samuel chapter 17 and verse number 38. All right, verse 38. 1 Samuel 17 and verse number 38. Watch David start showing images. Then Saul clothed David with his garments, put a bronze helmet on his head, and he clothed him with armor. David girded his sword over his armor and tried to walk, for he had not tested them. So David said to Saul, "I cannot go with these, for I have not tested them." And David took them off. He took his stick in his hand and chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in the shepherd's bag, which he had even in his pouch, and his sling was in his hand, and he approached the Philistine. Now, notice the image, 5 stones. Now let's go down to verse number 48. 1 Samuel 17 and verse 48. We're talking about David showing success images. Look at verse 48. Then it happened when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, that David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. David put his hand in his bag and took from it a stone, slung it and struck the Philistine on his forehead. And the stone sank into his forehead so that he fell on his face to the ground. Thus David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone. And he struck the Philistine and killed him. But there was no sword in David's hand. Look at verse 51. Then David ran, stood over the Philistine, took his sword. He took Goliath's sword, drew it out of his sheath, killed him, cut off his head with it. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. You see, that's a success image. Now, that's a little difficult for us to comprehend in our 20th century, in the 21st century. But guess what? In this time, the indicator of having won a battle, when you come back from battle, you brought the head of the king that you had overtaken. Because guess what? If you show up without any evidence, people don't know whether to believe you or not. But when you show up with somebody's head, guess what? They know it's over. See, that's why Herod's wife asked for John the Baptist's head on a platter. Because they knew, if I can see his head, then he won't be bothering us anymore. He won't be telling us anymore what's right and wrong. Okay? So you got to see success images and show success images. And then number 3, what we got to do, we've got to generate emotions. Generate success emotions. Now let's watch David. Go to verse 25, 1 Samuel 17. 1 Samuel 17, verse 25. Notice the emotions. That's all through this story. 1 Samuel 17 and verse number 25. The men of Israel said, have you seen this man who is coming up? Surely he's coming up to defy Israel. They're talking about Goliath. And it will be that the king will enrich the man who kills him with great riches, will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. Now let me tell you what that means. Now here's what the king said. Here's what Saul had said. Whoever kills Goliath get a chance, number 1, to marry my daughter. And it didn't get much better than to marry the king's daughter. Now watch this, but that's not all you get. You get a chance to marry. Now first of all, he said, I'm going to give you riches. You're going to get gold and silver. I mean, you know folk that are married into wealth. He said, I'm going to give you rich. I'm going to make you rich. Give you great riches. And then I'm going to let you marry my daughter. Now watch the third thing he says. He said, I'm going to make your house free. Now that carries 2 things. That means in your family. Now watch this. He said, I'm going to make his father's house free. So not only you're going to get a blessing that's going to start with you, but it's going to go back up to your father. Now watch what he said. He said, I'm going to make your father's house free. Now that meant your father's descendants would not have to pay taxes.
All right.
Now isn't that something? Now, I'm going to give you great riches, and you're never going to have to pay taxes. Just think for a moment. If the government gave you back tomorrow all the taxes you've ever paid, how would you feel? From the day you first went to work, if they gave you all of your taxes back, could you imagine how you could have lived if you had not taken out any taxes? Yeah. So he said, I'm going to give you riches, you're going to marry my daughter, and your father's house will live tax-free from now on. So not only will your daddy be tax-free, your brothers will be tax-free, your nephews will be tax-free, your great-nephews will be tax-free, and you will never have to pay taxes. All right? Now that's what's going to happen. Now watch it. Now when you get excited about that, you would get excited about that?
Yes, sir.
Now you can imagine how excited David got. Now look at verse 26. Then David spoke to the men who were standing by him, saying, what will be done for the man who kills the Philistines and takes away the reproach of Israel? He says, what? What hear? That's too good to be true. You mean I get rich? I get the king's daughter? And tax exempt? Whoa! And that's some kind. Now look at verse 27. Then the people answered him in accord with his word, saying, thus it will be done for the man who kills him. Now drop down to verse number, well, let's think. Look at verse 28. Now Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men. And Eliab's anger burned against David. Isn't that interesting? And he said, why have you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your insolence and the wickedness of your heart, for you have come down in order to see the battle. Now think about that for a moment. Eliab wasn't fighting, they were scared. There was no battle. Now all David said was, what's going to be done? And his brothers, I know you, you're not right, you're wicked in your heart, and you just come down here to see the battle. Look at verse 29, but David said, what have I done now? What does that tell you? That Eliab was always picking on him. Now, what have I done this time? I just can't do anything right in your eyes. What have I done this time? What have I done now? Was it not just a question? Then he turned away from him to another and said the same thing. And the people answered the same thing as before. See, if you're going to get to be a champion, you got to be persistent. Because there are some scared pseudo-champions. And you got to go on beyond them. Now watch David. So we got to position ourselves to capture success emotions. Now, when David heard what was going to be done for the man, he's as happy, he's as emotional, he's as ecstatic as he can get. You get rich, you get a beautiful wife, and you don't have to pay taxes. Listen, could you imagine if you could promise your son you'd be rich, beautiful wife, and never have to pay taxes? Wouldn't you like to have been married into a family where you were automatically rich, got a beautiful wife, and don't have to pay taxes? So we got to capture success emotions. And then we got to create success emotions. Stay right there in 1 Samuel 17 and verse number 31. Look at verse 31. When the words which David spoke were heard, they told them to Saul. And he sent for him. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail on account of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Then Saul said to David, you're not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, while he has been a warrior from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant was tending his father's sheep when a lion and a bear came and took a lamb from the flock. I went out after him, attacked him, rescued it from his mouth. And when he rose up against him, I seized him by his beard, struck him and killed him. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, since he has taunted the armies of the living God. Now look at verse 37. And David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said to David, go, and may the Lord be with you. Amen. Now, watch those emotions. I drop down to verse 48. When you go home today, you're going to read all of this and you'll pick up everything. Look at verse 48, same chapter, 1 Samuel 17, verse 48. Then it happened when the Philistine rose and came and drew near to David, that David did what? Ran. Notice how emotional he is. Ran quickly toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. Intensified emotions. In other words, David was saying, bring it on. Bring it on. I'm ready. Kill the lion and the bear. In this uncircumcised Philistine, he will be nothing. Taunting the armies of the living God. Let's get it on. Now, all right? Now look at it. So David, he powered himself to create success emotions. Now, here's what I want you to remember. It's success words. You got to hear them and you got to speak them. You can never be a champion with your mouth closed. You'll never be a champion with your mouth closed. You got to see them, you got to hear them, and you got to speak it. And then you got to see success images. You got to place yourself where people are successful. You know, years ago, the government created what was called in different cities as the project. Had good intentions, built the projects, and put people who won government support in the projects. And then after a while, the projects deteriorated, and they became crime-ridden and infested. You know what happened? Because there was very few success images there. Very few. Most of the people that the children saw every day, because I don't think they would put you in the projects if there was a man and a woman both in the family. So guess what? Everybody in the projects, single parent home. Single. All right? And then they're subsidized by the government. And so people didn't see folk getting up going to work. They didn't see husband and wives. They didn't see as many success images. And then people became confined to that. And so people then developed a mentality to believe that this is as far as I can ever go. And people began to believe that this is all there is to life. This is all. And if this is all there is to life, I might as well sell drugs. If I get killed tomorrow, I don't have anything to look forward to anyhow. Because there were no success images. Then the government discovered that was a bad deal. And so then they came up with a program. And now they will put you in other communities. Now, listen to this. People need success images. Now, many people who live in areas, they don't want a Section 8 house next door. And I understand that the fear is that your property value may go down. And I understand all of that. But those people need some success images. And where are they going to get them from? If we keep everybody who has failure images together, those children will never see it. And so they grow up thinking helplessly and hopelessly, and then all of a sudden we got this major disruption, and then everybody's all concerned. These success images. Now, here's what we got to start doing as individuals. Find a child in your community that doesn't get a chance to see success images, and take them out of that failure environment every now and then, and let them see success images. Let me show you how powerful success images are. I preached in Jackson, Tennessee in 1990. My co-minister had grown up in a family, and nobody in his family had ever gone to college. And he said, "You didn't think you'd go to college. You think you'd go." So one day, his regular teacher was out of the class, and they had an assistant, a substitute teacher. And the substitute teacher asked everybody, "Where are you going to college?" Well, he didn't put anything on paper, going to college. And so the man said to him, "Where are you going?" He said, "I can't go to college." He said, "Yes, you can." He said, "Really?" And that man took it upon himself on college day to take this young man to a particular college, to show him how to enroll and to convince him that he can go to college. He was my co-minister for 3 years. He would have never gotten to college if somebody hadn't taken it upon themselves to place him inside of a college environment. Now, I hope you're picking up a little something. One of the things that we're going to do right here, eventually, we're going to start taking children in this town to college campuses to introduce them to college life. We took college, I've done that for years, took a young lady to Tuskegee, and she realized I can go to college. And she decided to enroll. See, there are many, they don't know they can go to college. They don't know there's a different life, there's a better way. They got to see success images. So it's words, images, and success emotions, and he'll get you there. Now, as a result of this sermon, here's what God wants you to do. And it is up to you. This is just what we've got to do. We've got to gather words. We've got to gather success words. We have to generate images and grow emotions. We've got to gather words, generate images and grow emotions. See, the more your emotional intensity grows, the greater the probability that you will be successful. But if your emotional intensity is very low, you're not going to get that far. See, that's why we've got to get excited about being Christians. Get excited about becoming a Christian. Sometimes people have to be begged to be baptized. Then they have to beg them to read the Bible. Beg them to pray. You know what the problem is? They're not emotionally stable.
Right.
You know, it's interesting. Children have trouble waking up Monday through Friday, and on Saturday they wake up before their parents because they are emotionally excited about cartoons. But they're not excited about English and math. And so we've got to become excited people. We can never be too excited for the Lord. Excited and enthusiastic. And our enthusiasm needs to show. All right? If you're here and you're not a Christian, when you get excited about serving the Lord on the day of Pentecost, they were excited. Peter preached to them and convinced them that Jesus, the Son of God, the one they had crucified, he was the one who had come to save them.
Right.
They asked the question, what shall we do? Peter said, repent and be baptized. Every one of you in the name of the Lord Jesus for the forgiveness of your sin, and you'll receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. And guess what? 3,000 people got up and did it. They were excited about it. As a matter of fact, they were so excited about the gospel, they started selling what they have, giving to the poor, and a few days later, we see there were 4,000. Then there were 5,000.
Wow.
You know why it's so hard to convert people? We sometimes think people are just so hard. We're not excited enough. Do you know that people buy into anything you're excited about?
Right.
You don't believe it's true? You go to the mall tomorrow and start running through the mall excited, and sometimes start running behind you and see what it is.
That's right.
Excitement attracts attention. And excitement with knowledge and understanding is what God wants. You need to become a Christian. Today, be baptized after believing that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, repenting of sin, confessing Him to be Lord and Christ, and identifying with Him in the waters of baptism. You cancel out your debt of sin. In a moment, we're going to stand up and sing number 355. And that song is entitled, What Can Wash Away My Sins? Nothing can wash away your sins. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And the blood of Jesus washes away your sins when you are baptized into His spiritual body. Let's stand and sing together.
What can wash away my sin? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. What can make me whole again? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other found I know. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Nothing can force it atone. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Not the good that I have done. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other found I know. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other found I know. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. What can wash away my sin?
You may be seated. God, we thank you for the blood of Jesus.
Amen.
That can wash away our sins. God, for those this very day who have not had their sins washed away, use us in this message and every ounce of energy we have to attract them to baptism so that their sins will be washed away.
Yes,
Help us to be enthusiastic always about serving you. Engrave and instill in our heart a desire to see worship and serving you as an opportunity, not as an obligation.
yes.
Thank you so much for making us champions. Thank you for teaching us the process. Success words, success images, and success emotions
Amen.
will transform us into champions for you. And we'll be mindful to give you the glory and the honor just as David did.
Yes, Lord.
It's in Jesus' name we ask it all. Amen.
Amen.
170. God is so good as we prepare for communion. 170.
God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. He's so good to me. He answers prayer. He answers prayer. He answers prayer. He's so good to me. I love him so. I love him so.